Hi, everyone. I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg, and I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we're going to talk about prenatal stress, anxiety, and depression. My guess is you've heard the term PMADS, perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. Now, while PMADS does cover the whole experience of prenatal, postnatal, and beyond, most of the time when we think of PMADS, we think of what happens postpartum. So I wanted to focus actually on prenatal stress, anxiety, and depression because it is really an enormous change in people's lives. And there's a lot of time that people do experience this and may not even recognize what they're having. After all, most of the time we hear about pregnancy, we're told to be glowing and excited about this change, but there can be enormous stress, anxiety, as well as trying to understand who you are as you make this huge transition. So to have this important conversation, I have Kayce Hodos. Let me tell you a little bit about Kayce. So she has spent the better part of her 20-year career in mental health focused on loss and life transitions. After having her son in 2012, however, her own coping skills were put to the test as she struggled through a very dark experience of postpartum depression and anxiety. Thankfully, she was able to climb out of her bit of despair and get her own help through her own therapist. Once she was healthy again, she found a new passion in supporting folks through their adjustment into parenthood. These days, she not only supports people who are struggling with perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, but she also coaches expectant parents to help prevent and lower the risk of these disorders. Kayce gives such wonderful information. Now, I am someone that loves practical ideas. So something that Kayce does in this conversation is she gives you some very specific coping skills that I think are really universal, not just for perinatal mood and anxiety, but for any time you're feeling overwhelmed and out of body. So I think you're going to get a lot out of this conversation. Now, before we get to this really fun and rich conversation with Kayce, I just want to talk about some things going on at Prenatal Yoga Center. So believe it or not, we just celebrated our 21st birthday, and we had a big online celebration with current students, with folks from the past. We had a birthday party, prenatal yoga class, and of course, some postpartum folks showed up as well. It was delightful to see people whose babies are now 15 and 16 years old showing up for class and helping us celebrate. So thank you for those who came to our birthday celebration. Thank you to everyone in our community. It just reminds me of what a huge journey this has been and the many, many lives we have touched. And it's an honor, a deep honor to have been part of these huge transitional times in people's lives. So thank you to our community. Now, we continue to offer our classes online and in person. So 7 days a week, you can find our classes online and 7 days a week in person. And we also have our workshops. We have our childbirth ed, our CPR, our lactation class, our newborn prep, all of that. We have online and in person on-demand workshops as well. So check that out. And then the last thing I just want to share, we have our teacher training. So if you're someone that you're a yoga teacher and you really want to dive into the perinatal community, we've got you covered. This is a very deep, intensive look at how to support people through yoga, pre and postnatal. So take a look at our website for all that information, prenatalyogacenter.com. All right, that is enough of me. Thank you again for being part of our community. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Kayce. Hi, Kayce. How are you?
Hey, Deb. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. So just wanted to be full transparent with those listening. You may hear a few big claps of thunder. There is an enormous thunder and lightning storm happening right outside my window. So if anyone's like, what was that sound? That is the storm brewing around me. Hopefully you're not having that, Kayce.
No, it's very hot here. So yeah, but those summertime storms, I don't know, they're kind of nice.
Yeah, it could be peaceful if I didn't have to record. But anyway,
Right.
I just wanted to share people like, what is happening? The apocalypse over there. All right, so we're going to jump in to talk about prenatal stress and anxiety. But before we do, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and how you got into perinatal mental health.
Well, it- you know, I gave birth to my son 11 and a half years ago. And that really, it was life changing, of course. It always
Hmm.
is when you have a baby. But I actually experienced a really dark that first year was really hard for me. And I went through my own experience of postpartum depression and anxiety. And I just felt so ill prepared for the whole adjustment to motherhood. And I swore that when I crawled out of my deep, dark pit of despair, I was going on a mission to tell the truth about motherhood and to help other women facing that same adjustment. I couldn't believe, and things have changed a lot since then. There are a lot of more resources, but back then, like, there weren't specialists, mental health professionals who specialized in the perinatal time period,
Hmm.
and there just wasn't a lot of screening. I did. My pediatrician actually was the one who screened me for it and really like looked me in the eyes and said, "How are you really doing?"
Hmm.
And I just broke down. And and so the rest is history, as they say. But yeah, it was really a personal experience with this very topic that we're discussing today.
Thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate when people do share their brutal reality because I think it makes it more understandable and more tangible for those going through it to not feel so
Hmm.
alone or feel any. And sometimes I've had students that have had depression either during pregnancy or postpartum, and they often feel kind of shame around it. And so I love that you're opening this up to be like, this happens and there's support
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
So I guess we should jump right into this. So one thing I think we often hear about is postpartum depression, but it seems that depression is not recognized quite as much. Can you talk about the prevalence of prenatal depression and anxiety? Like, approximately what percentage of the pregnant population do you think experiences this?
Well, the statistics show around 6% of pregnant people develop anxiety during
Six? That's
pregnancy.
it? I would have thought it would have been much higher.
Well, yeah, that was my next. That was where I was going. We think it's much higher because we know that mental health issues go underreported because of what you just said about the shame around it, especially for new mothers, because we send this message that you're supposed to just be loving every second of that time with your baby, and it's supposed to be beautiful just like on the diaper commercials, and it just isn't. It's really hard, and it can be very isolating for women. And then we also send this message that, like, that you may not be a good mother if you're having these symptoms. If you're
Mm,
feeling sad or if you're feeling anxious, there must be something wrong with you. And so women are sometimes afraid to be honest with their healthcare providers out of fear that, maybe they're going to take their baby away or something like that. Because we see these extremes, in movies and news stories. And what gets lost in the conversation is this anxiety and depression that occurs for a lot of women, and it's very treatable, and if we would just talk about it more, I think women would feel more comfortable and safe, talking to their doctors about it, or asking for a referral to a therapist, or talking about medication, or whatever it may be. But I think that conversation is just really lacking in a lot of environments, where we find ourselves as new parents. Just people aren't talking about it.
yeah, and it's interesting for the prenatal specifically because I remember having a student that talked to me about prenatal. This was, I don't know, maybe 10 plus years ago. And I still remember it so clearly. So she's talking to me about her prenatal depression and anxiety. And yeah, I hadn't really considered prenatal. I always thought of postnatal. And she was sharing that, it's pretty common. But something that you had said is that maybe the care provider picks up on this. But then it can be really hard to actually get treatment because if a lot of therapists don't take insurance. So a lot of people already feel kind of stressed out at the financials of being pregnant. And then they may find a hard time even getting a therapist. So it feels like kind of a double whammy of like, you want to take care of yourself. And sometimes it's hard to. I guess that wasn't a question. It was more of a statement and observation, but it can feel overwhelming.
Yeah, especially in American culture. We don't have the healthcare and the we won't get on a soapbox, but we could do more.
But we will exactly. We could do a lot more. All right, so I'm going to rein myself back in so I don't get on that soapbox. But back to prenatal anxiety. So, what are some of the symptoms of prenatal anxiety disorder? Because it doesn't feel like it can just be confused with the nervousness of being pregnant because this is a huge transition in life.
Yes. Yeah, and I wanted to actually go back to, and we're talking about those terms. We're using those terms prenatal and postpartum.
Yes.
And I wanted to say a little bit about the terminology there. People in the field of perinatal mental health, we've been trying to use the term perinatal a lot more because it more accurately describes the time period where parents may be experiencing some of these symptoms. Perinatal means the period during pregnancy, so it covers pregnancy and the entire first year of baby's life.
Yes, PMADs. I guess thank you for sharing that. I guess the reason I keep saying prenatal is because I want to distinguish about where we are in the time of talking, because we do so much focus on post, like the after baby, that I want to make sure listeners know that we're talking about during pregnancy. So, but thank you for clarifying that. Yes, PMADs covers the whole thing, but I really want us, because again, people may not recognize, they only think, okay, postpartum, but here I am pregnant. And a lot of people get the message of like, especially if they've been trying for a baby for so long, that they get this message like, shouldn't I be really happy?
Oh, that's a huge issue. Yes, I love talking about that topic because, again, messaging, right, in our society that like, if you've been wanting a baby, then, excuse me, Deb, had a cough. Sorry. But yeah, we receive these messages that, if I've struggled to get pregnant, then it happens for me, I should just be overjoyed. And and this black and white thinking, this all or nothing kind of negative self-talk just doesn't serve us. So, yes, exactly. Like during pregnancy, we're expected to be glowing and getting the nursery ready. And, there's just a whole slew of feelings that women are pressured to feel and to be outwardly feeling. And if it's, or you could be having morning sickness and that's okay. But mental health, like you should not be struggling with your mental health, and that's where that shame comes up. And so that's why I'm so glad that you are that you're spending a whole podcast episode on the prenatal anxiety that a lot of women feel. And yes, you were saying that like might it just be confused with the normal types of nervousness, and that is really important to remember that anxiety is your brain's way of keeping you safe. And your brain really changes during pregnancy. We talk about mom brain, and that's a real thing. So it is natural for us during pregnancy to experience heightened sensitivity. Some women report like having their sense of smell is heightened, and you're kind of on hyper alert, and that makes sense. If you think about evolution and keeping the species going that like we would if we are carrying around a tiny human, then we need to be careful and we need to keep that baby safe. So let's remember that, your brain is amazing, and any kind of anxiety that we feel about something new is normal. When it's not normal, and it is interfering with your daily functioning and your well-being, that's when it becomes a concern and it starts to manage you instead of you managing it.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for clarifying that. So, what kind of screening is there for prenatal anxiety or depression? Because I feel like these checkups can be 6 or 7 minutes. You're getting weighed, you're getting your blood pressure checked, maybe checking the urine for protein, listen to the baby, and then boom, you're out. So where is screening happening?
Yes. The Association for OBs, which is called ACOG, here in the States, I think that may be an international organization, but I think
No, it's American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology.
American. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So they are recommending that the Edinburgh screening tool be used at the first prenatal visit and throughout, at least once per trimester. And then also,
can you describe what that is?
The Edinburgh?
Yes.
Yes. So it is a questionnaire that doctors, therapists, you can even look it up for free online and take it. But it has questions that screen for both depression and anxiety, which is important because for a long time, the anxiety piece was really falling through the cracks for a lot of women. So this is really the preferred screening tool. There's another one called PHQ-9, and it does not screen for anxiety. So that's just important to remember. But it's a quick, very easy questionnaire that you can answer, and then your provider will give you a score, and that tells them how severe your symptoms are and if treatment should be recommended.
That is great. I feel like this is somewhat newish. My daughter is 9, my son just turned 12, and I don't remember taking this at all.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know approximately when this started to be more routine?
Oh, that's a really good question. I know that I believe I was screened, and that was like 11 and a half years ago. And that was my pediatrician, though. I don't remember any screening happening with my OB at that time. But ACOG is actually recommending for pediatricians to also screen mom at babies 3-month, 9-month, and 12-month appointments, which I think is
so
great.
Yeah. I really like that. I remember my pediatrician also checking in on me. I thought that she was just like checking in on breastfeeding, but she sat me down for a while. She's like, "Oh, let's just see how your latches do. Why don't you just stay for a bit?" And in hindsight, I'm like, "Oh, she was making sure I was okay," which I appreciated. Yeah.
They're so important. The pediatricians are seeing these new moms a lot more than their OB is seeing them in that first year.
Oh, absolutely. Because you don't often see an OB until 6 weeks or midwife.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, you're seeing that pediatrician a lot, for all the shots and checkups. So
yes.
They play a huge role. So how might prenatal stress and anxiety affect the pregnant person and their baby? And I have to tell you, there was part of me that's like, ooh, do we open this up? But there is research how stress and anxiety does affect the pregnant person and baby. But when we're talking about guilt, it felt like such a double-edged sword because then the person's going to be like, oh my gosh, I do have stress and anxiety and I'm hurting myself and my baby and I already have mom guilt. So right. I was very on this, I didn't know how to answer that, but I did want to just put this out there so we can dive into that.
Yes, I felt the same. I feel the same way. When we're talking, we have to be able to talk about risk in a nuanced way, in a common sense type way, so that we can be informed. Because I think the problem has been when we don't talk honestly with women and listen to them, that's when problems happen. And so I think we have to be able to say that yes, whatever you're experiencing during pregnancy is impacting your baby, because your baby is growing inside of you. And so, like, of course, there are going to be impacts. Now, we don't know for sure how much the anxiety you're feeling and your mental health concerns are being passed along to baby. But there was, yes, I remember reading about a study done in Norway. I think it was in 2020. And all the data that I did not read the entire study, but the blurb that I read about did say that the preliminary studies show that anxiety during pregnancy could adversely affect social emotional development for the baby. So we don't know. We don't know. We just don't have the studies, and because anxiety has not been studied as much as perinatal depression, we just don't have the information right now. So it's important to just keep that in mind. But the biggest, most typical, most common way that a pregnant person's anxiety is going to impact their baby is in the postpartum. It's going to be their well-being and the their opportunity to bond and attach with their baby is going to be impacted because they're going to be worrying all the time. And any of your listeners who have experienced anxiety know about the terrible feedback loop that happens with anxiety. Anxiety just feeds into more anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
The list of worries is endless when you are pregnant. I mean, the minute you find out you're pregnant, right? There are so many things to be afraid of. So it's not shocking, that women experience anxiety during that time period. All the tests that you go through during pregnancy at your OB's office, your age, like just everything about you is kind of like put under a magnifying glass, and you feel, yeah, you feel like everything is riding on you, and
Yeah.
so I would like to not focus so much on what it could be doing to your unborn baby, so much as what can we do about the anxiety that mom is experiencing, and what can we do about coping with the endless list of worries and the lack of sleep that may be occurring, the cortisol levels that are increasing the stress symptoms that she's feeling, and what can we do about that, to support this mom?
I appreciate that. I liked your spin on it, but like, okay, yes, there has been some studies. I think they also said cognitive function can be affected, but we know that can happen. So let's be practical and look at steps to be taken during and before pregnancy to meet one's emotional needs. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's be problem solvers and find some steps to support what one might be experiencing. Kate, we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So yes, we realize there's stress, there's anxiety, it can affect baby. But now, instead of just going deeper down the rabbit hole, I'm so prone to doing that, let's also then look at what can we do? So what steps can be taken either before pregnancy or during pregnancy to make sure emotional needs are met, and then we can help lower anxiety and stress?
Yes, I love this question because this is just my jam, talking to people about planning ahead. And again, we have to be very mindful about preparing. We cannot plan for every single situation.
Correct.
But we can prepare ourselves with tools to help manage any kind of surprises that come up, because there will be surprises.
Right.
And so I strongly encourage expectant parents and even couples who are planning to conceive to communicate with each other about what you need from each other, what you need from your support system, and just keeping that conversation going. You can change your mind. You might think that you want to have a home birth, and then maybe you get freaked out and you decide, no, I think I'd rather, deliver at a birthing center or hospital. And it's okay to change your mind, but just have the conversation. Have the conversations with your healthcare providers. Talk to your partners. Talk to your support network. And get everyone in the loop and on the same page with what you're thinking and what you need. Because we aren't supposed to be doing this all alone. Early humans had a village, and we just honestly don't have that in American culture anyway. Like, we're very isolated.
Mm-hmm.
I work with so many clients who have no family support where they live. And so sometimes our support has to be hired even, and not everybody has the financial means to do that. So we have to really be smart about reaching out for help from the people that we trust. And I encourage people to just think about, go beyond your birth plan, because I think having a birth plan is pretty common these days. As far as, delivery goes and who you want to be in the delivery room with you
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. And, but what about when baby comes home? Who can you line up to check in on you and to bring meals? Meal trains are really common these days. And I think that's a lovely idea for friends and family. You got to eat. You don't stop being human
Mm-hmm.
after you give birth. You still need to eat. You need to sleep. Who can run some errands for you, pick up some groceries for you, help care for your pet. These are things that we don't always think about when we're doing all the fun planning and we're picking out the stroller and the, what color we want to paint the baby's room. But these are really important things that, if we plan for this stuff during pregnancy and we just go ahead and start practicing talking about these things, I think it gets easier. It can be really scary for most of the people I know to ask for help. We just have this block, and we don't really like it. For some of us, it's just uncomfortable, and for other people, we really have a lot of mindset trash around asking for help. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. It may not ever be easy, but we need people. We know this. We know that social support is so important. So
I see that in our
yeah.
postnatal students. Actually, I see that in both sides, the prenatal and the postnatal. And that's why at PMH-C, we focus so much on community. Like, we actually start every class with circle time, where everyone introduces themselves and they say how far along they are in their aches, pains, and issues. And it's amazing how I've had students say, when they're about to give birth, they're like, I can't wait to come back for postnatal just to see everybody. And especially in a place like New York City, where a lot of us are transplants. There's kind of a small few that are actually born and bred New Yorkers. And we, like you're saying, we don't have family around. And so we have to build our own, and we have to make our own community. And what I love about new parent support groups and our prenatal yoga classes is there's a understanding, just a foundational understanding of what they're all going through. They don't have to try to explain it to a friend who may have never had a baby or had a baby years ago. So I love that opportunity of what you're saying, find your people that can support you. And sometimes it's people going through it together.
Yes. Oh, I love that you do that circle time. It's so important,
It
to
is.
just, yeah. And I say this as a very strong introvert. People do need people, even introverts, and the isolation of motherhood.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. It absolutely is. And if you are having anxiety during pregnancy or in the postpartum or both, it makes it really hard to leave the house. And so it's important, whether your support group is virtual or whether it's in person at a yoga center, that sounds beautiful. I love that idea of mothers supporting other mothers and doing it in a relaxing and safe space. such as the kind that you provide, Deb. I just love
Thank
it.
you. Yeah, no, I love it too, because then sometimes people that are introverts, they don't even have to speak up that much, but they can still be part of a community. Like it's not a support group where then everyone's kind of expected to speak. They just, they can just show up and be around each other. Oh my gosh, we're so diverted, but let me pull it back.
Sorry.
No. I'm so this way. I'm like, let's keep talking. All right. So what are some of the ways to lower the risk of prenatal and postnatal mental health issues?
So really, the same. I mean, what we've been talking about, support is so
Find your people.
Find your people. Like, get that village together. Go ahead and think about, hiring a postpartum doula. A lot of people hire a birth doula, which is great. But I'm telling you, like, there's nothing like having somebody who knows the ropes, having time with you after you bring your baby home, because that is when you feel so alone and there is no instruction manual and you don't know what you're doing. And somebody who can just come in and help, like, I don't know, do laundry and stuff too. Like postpartum doula can serve you in so many ways.
They're so amazing. Yeah. So friends out there that are pregnant, I'm just going to jump in and say this. If you're thinking about a baby shower gift, ask your friends to spend money on a postpartum doula. Best gift I ever had. So I just had to jump in and say that. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. I had that. I had that in my notes to say, like, put it on your registry, say that you want to have, because that is what it's the boring kind of gifts like that. That are going to make the real difference. Oh, it's absolutely not going to be that bouncy seat or
another
jogging stroller.
How many onesies do we need, people? No.
Okay. Right. Oh my God, the blankets. Like, calm down with the blankets.
Yeah, spend that $20, $30, $50 on an hour or two of a postpartum doula. Far better. Oh, I love that we're in the same place as that. All right, so let's talk coping skills. What are some specific coping skills people can start to use when feeling that prenatal stress and anxiety start to really take hold?
Okay, so I think the same coping skills apply whether you have, like, generalized anxiety during pregnancy, during postpartum, at any time. I always say that I love this because it's easy to remember. GPS. G is for go outside. Cool. Getting outside is the easiest way to have a reset, to reset your mood, to get some vitamin D. Even in New York City, where the buildings are so tall, you only get 2 minutes of sunlight a day. Go outside anyway, and just get some fresh air. It can just be a total game changer, and it's absolutely free. So go outside. And I tell new moms, it's like, get outside at least once a day. Mm-hmm. Just take your baby, go outside. The P is for protein. So make sure you have some simple, easily accessible snacks that have protein. So think yogurt, cheese sticks, hard-boiled eggs, things like that. So, because a protein snack is really, it does impact your mood and it sticks with you longer. And it's just really important. And it's an easy little strategy. Now, S stands for sleep. And we know newborns, they have to eat a lot throughout the night. They have to eat every 2 to 3 hours, most of them. So you are not going to be getting your ideal sleep during the first, 3 to 4 months probably of baby's life. But during pregnancy, go ahead and make sure you are setting yourself up for success by, getting enough sleep. And
it's so hard at the end because you're so uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
At least I felt that way. It's like, no matter how many huge pillows, and my poor husband was hanging off the bed because I swaddled myself in pillows and I was often hot. It's hard because then if you're on your side for so long, then no matter how I stationed myself, and then rolling over felt like moving like a medicine ball from side to side.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I know. It is. It's really hard. It's hard during that last that third trimester, you're getting up to pee all the time. Like, yeah, it's really hard. And then when baby comes, that's why you're not sleeping. But when you have the opportunity to sleep,
Like cat
rest, at
naps.
least rest, at
Yeah.
least have some quiet time for yourself. And other coping. So that's my like main GPS, just really easy to remember. And then what I love mindfulness as a coping tool, and for new parents too. Like I literally, like, mindfulness has changed the way I look at everything, and because it is really just paying attention to the now. A lot of anxiety is worry about the future or the past, neither of which we can control. We only have the right now. And so when you find your thoughts spinning out of control and this overwhelming sense of worry or panic, ask yourself, are you worrying about something that's yet to happen? Or are you beating yourself up for something that's already happened? If so, that's not productive. What can you do in the right now? You can probably slow down your breathing, do some stretches, go see Deb for a yoga class, have a snack.
I like that. Yeah.
Get out. Anytime we can just slow down, because our brains are very busy keeping us alive.
I like that about the mindfulness. It's one thing. So I have a now 12-year-old. He just turned 12 last week. And he does have a lot of anxiety. So something we're working with him, I tried to try to breathe. He's like, no. And I'm like, okay, great. So I said, just try to feel your feet on the ground, because that brings you into your body. And that actually worked for him. And I'm like, even just wiggle your toes, because oftentimes I found, and I find this as a yoga teacher, when that, and anxious person myself, when we fall into that anxiety, we're so in our head. Like we almost feel like we're a floating head, don't even feel our body. So the deep breathing, or the actually feeling, can I feel my feet touch the ground? Or if I'm laying in bed, can I feel my body fall into the mattress? That helps me. So I just want to share that with folks out there.
Oh, yeah, I love that. That's such a good grounding technique. And anytime, you can engage your senses, that will send a signal to your brain that you're in the present. You're not in danger. You're slowing down enough to smell the smells around you and listen to the sounds in the room, or if you're outside, wherever you are, you can do this. And it's incredibly helpful, because our brains are inside of our heads in the dark. They're relying on our senses to give them very important signals. And so if anytime we can slow down and use our senses to communicate to our brains that, like, there's nothing to panic about, we are safe, we are here in the moment.
Oh, I like that. And I also wonder for pregnant folks, and I hope this is a way of connecting that, if we're talking about being in your body, if someone's feeling baby movement, it could be, all right, I'm going to connect inward to myself, and I'm going to connect inward to my baby, and maybe I can feel baby movement. Just throwing that there.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And, and other worries that can occur during pregnancy have to do with the pregnancy itself and the baby. And so, that's probably the biggest difference between just, generalized anxiety and prenatal or perinatal anxiety, is that a lot of the worry is focused on the baby's well-being. And so anytime you have questions that come up in your mind about things that you're worried about, I say keep a little note in your phone that just has all the questions that you can think of for your OB or for your midwife. And that way you won't forget. And so at the next appointment, pull up that note and ask away, because I promise you, they have heard it before. You're not going to ask anything that they can't handle or answer for you, or give you more information about, or ease your fears around. And so, a lot of times with anxiety, it's just this endless loop in our heads. But like, I'm a fan of writing things down, because somehow that act of writing it down, it gets it out of your head. And you can, and you can tell yourself, okay, it's on that note, it's in my phone, or it's in my journal, and I will worry about that later.
I've actually gotten out of bed and written things down.
Yeah.
If my brain is like, if I'm like, oh, I don't want to forget this, I've actually gone downstairs to my office, written something down, came back up, crawled in bed, and fell back asleep because it's almost like I got it out and I'm like, great, I'll deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about forgetting it. It's there.
Yes,
It's written down.
yes. Worry about forgetting the thing that I'm totally stressed about. So I love that. I love that you shared that. Okay, we're going to take one more break. And when we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents? And this could either come from your experience as a parent or your experience as a therapist, whatever hat you want to put on. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So, what is one final tip or piece of advice you'd like to offer new and expectant parents?
Well, as a therapist myself, I'm going to encourage everyone to talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody. And if you don't need to know exactly what is going on with you in order to seek help. A lot of times I'll get a call from a prospective client and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm not really I'm not thinking about harming myself. And I don't know if I'm worried enough. I don't know if it's anxiety. I don't know. Maybe it's depression." You don't have to know. You can reach out to somebody, talk to a friend. If it's a professional, if you're curious and you want to talk to a therapist, find one, ask your OB or midwife for a referral. Go online to postpartum.net. There's a directory there with, full of professionals who are trained in perinatal mental health. And, and so reach out, don't just sit there being worried and being all alone, because you're not alone. And the more you ask for help, the easier it gets. And so just don't suffer all by yourself. There are people out there who can help you. So I guess that's my final tip.
I like that. I really like that. And I really appreciate your encouragement because I can see people, I feel like this is my old, yes, I will reach out. And they don't. And I just appreciate your nudging because it really can make such a huge difference. And it's such a tumultuous time of change that why not have a little extra support? So thank you. What a great piece of advice. Where can people find your work?
So the best way to connect with me is at KayceHodos.com, KayceHodos.com. I have a little free audio series that you can subscribe to there, and it's called Mindful Mom to Be. And it's just a little series of me talking with different experts in this field, and different professionals who work with expectant and new parents. So I would love it if you would, hang out with me there.
That is so great. And I'll make sure that's in our show notes so people can link directly to that. Kayce, I've had so much fun talking to you. It's not the easiest topic, and yet you've made it so accessible and easy to dive into. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Deb, for having me. This was great.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Yoga, Birth, Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.